Another day in NFL paradise. Yesterday, we had Carson Wentz dealt from the Colts to the Washington Commanders, the second straight season in which Carson Wentz has been traded. That obviously came on the heels of the Aaron Rodgers contract day and the Russell Wilson trade from Seattle to Denver. So the quarterback market is moving. The new league year starts next week, and 49ers fans are still waiting for one of the two guys on the screen right there, Jimmy Garoppolo, not number 5, number 10. They're still waiting for potential news on him. So what's the deal? Let's go through what the deal is, because there's, again, a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. It's okay to admit what we don't know, but we can frame and we can summarize what's happening right now in a smart way. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk more about Jimmy Garoppolo, who underwent surgery on Tuesday. So any potential trade suitors' due diligence medically has been likely to take at least a bit of time. This is something that we obviously learned during the combine, that Garoppolo was going to undergo surgery on his capsule and his shoulder. So this is not a rotator cuff surgery. This is a capsule surgery, considered much more minor. However, there is a recovery time involved here. Late June, early July is when Jimmy Garoppolo is expected to be back. And because of the fact that he has had to undergo surgery and because he will miss OTAs, well, you can imagine that any prospective trade suitor is probably going to have a few more questions. Now, we've discussed the fact that in all likelihood, this won't be something that completely deters the 49ers, deters another team from trading with the 49ers from Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's obviously going to lead to more medical due diligence. And to that end, John Lynch of the Combine said, they could talk to our doctors. Everything's on the table. It's open. We're confident that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to make 100% return from this injury. It's not a complicated surgery. And by all accounts, the surgery on Tuesday took well, but that was still on Tuesday. And I think the teams are probably going to want to see at least a couple days of on-track recovery from that injury. So I think that you have to factor in the medical due diligence here. And you also have to factor in the fact that reportedly a team like Washington was very, very interested in Jimmy Garoppolo. He was on that short list that we saw that included Russell Wilson, that obviously included Carson Wentz, but they ended up going the Wentz route. Now, the 49ers said that they would try to do right by Jimmy Garoppolo. That means that if possible, they would send him to where he wanted to go. Washington might not have been on that short list for Jimmy Garoppolo, although his no trade clause doesn't exist in this next season. It won't exist in 2022. So at the end of the day, if there's only one team that is offering the 49ers what they feel that they should get in return for Jimmy Garoppolo, they'll send him there. But if there are multiple teams, and there's still a chance there's multiple teams, because you got the Colts now with an opening. Obviously, the Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints are a dark horse candidate, I guess, because a rumor came out of the combine, and the Seattle Seahawks might still be looking for a quarterback, although that's a more under the radar option since they're in the West. But if there are multiple teams, then the 49ers might try to facilitate where Garoppolo wants to go. But this medical due diligence, all this kind of stuff, I think that slows the timeline down a bit. But obviously the 49ers don't want to slow it down too much, because the new league year does start on Wednesday. And the 49ers are $4 million over the salary cap right now. Being $4 million over the salary cap, they need to find a way to get under that limit by March 16th. Do they need to trade Garoppolo by then to do that? No, they don't. There's other ways that the 49ers can get under, but they aren't in a particularly rosy salary cap situation. $4 million over with 47 players signed right now, because they have tendered a few of these exclusive rights free agents. So they haven't actually signed, but they've tendered them. So they're working against the cap. That means the 49ers still have at least 4 players to sign for the top 51 rule to come into effect. So effectively, their effective cap space right now is like $7 or $8 million over. So you have to free up some room. Garoppolo, trading him would free up $25.5 million. If you released him because of the injury guarantees right now, it'd probably only free up 17 or 18 million. So you can see how a release or a trade, especially a trade, would be something that's financially beneficial to the 49ers right now. But they're playing the straddling game, right? Trying to play both sides of this. It worked for them throughout the 2021 season, developing Lance, playing Garoppolo. Well, now you try to play both financial sides of the coin to see if you can maximize your trade return as far as draft picks go, but also while you're maximizing the trade return, not having that take too long so that you compromise yourselves financially. So I would expect the 49ers to start making other financial moves in the coming days. They obviously have until Wednesday to get under that cap. And it's not only about getting under the cap, it's about being in a competitive position to make a run at pricier free agents. So the 49ers are probably going to have to be creative to do any signings, whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo is, still on the books. But they have a better chance to be creative if they have more money. Now, the Carson Wentz trade to me was super interesting because we talk about money. I mean, this guy has just made teams burn through or be willing to burn through cash just to get rid of him. Remember that the Eagles were willing to eat $33.8 million of dead money just to get rid of Carson Wentz last season. And maybe I should put Wentz up on the screen. Yeah, there we go. There's a better picture. And this year, reportedly, when you looked at this article up on The Athletic by Zach Kiefer, the Indianapolis Colts were willing to eat $15 million in dead money just to get rid of Carson Wentz. They were done with him, even if there wasn't a potential trade partner, and there ended up being a potential trade partner with the Washington Commanders. So that's nearly $50 million in dead money that teams in just over a calendar year, two separate teams in just over a calendar year, have been willing to part with just to have Carson Wentz not play for their team. So, I mean, this has been a disaster in devaluation for a once promising quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. In fact, if you look at some of the trade prices, key components of them, remember the Wentz 2021 price? It was a 2 that could become a 1, and it did become a 1 because Wentz played enough snaps. The 2022 price, it's a third-round pick that could become a second-round pick. So what will the 2023 price be for Carson Wentz? Is it going to be a 4 that could become a 3, and then in 2024 it could be a 5 that could become a 4? I mean, it just makes you wonder how long is this game going to be played? How long will teams keep on taking a chance on a guy just because he's 6'5" and 240 pounds? And therein lies, one of the differences between Carson Wentz and Jimmy Garoppolo that's fascinating to me. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, indisputably has been a better, more efficient quarterback than Carson Wentz. I mean, you just look at the Colts last year, number 2 run offense, DVOA, number 20 pass offense. It was the pass offense that was slowing them down. For the 49ers, they were top 6 in both, right? And I think, down the stretch run of the season, they were top 5 in both. So that passing offense wasn't dragging them down. In the case of Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts, it obviously was. They were ready to move on, probably even before they got their asses kicked by Jacksonville at the end of the season. Yet there's a chance that Carson Wentz will command more than Jimmy Garoppolo on the trade market. And to me, it's simply because of physical potential. The dude is 6'5", 240 pounds. And the really interesting twist in all of this is that he's one of Trey Lance's predecessors at North Dakota State. But Wentz is supremely physically gifted. And I guess the early hot start that he had to his NFL career at Philadelphia has just made some GMs around the league, a non-zero amount, obviously, believe that they could fix him, that they could turn him around. And I mean, you even had Frank Reich, the coach of the Colts, admit late in this season, he apologized to his front office. He said, I thought that I could turn Carson Wentz around. So there's something about the physical allure of Carson Wentz and the fact that he's got the cannon for an arm, the ability to move, the big statuesque body. There's something about that makes NFL teams keep on believing in him. Whereas Jimmy Garoppolo is, a little bit of the opposite. Underdog, second-round pick out of an FCS school, but not 6'5", 230, 240. Obviously a bit smaller. Now he's got the injury history as well. Yes, he's been efficient. He's won football games, but he's never been viewed as the physical specimen. And therein you have the balance, right? Is the ability to do the small things, right? The intangibles, right? That you bring to the table, the leadership, some things that have been questions with Carson Wentz. Is that worth more than the physical prowess? Or is the physical prowess worth more than that? And I think typically on the NFL trade market, we've seen physical prowess supersede that. Now, this may be a different case, right? Maybe Garoppolo will wow a team like the Colts, who, for example, when you see what their splits were last year. They think they're one piece away. They think they need a quarterback who could plug in, bring that offense to efficiency, just like Garoppolo was a glue piece to help bring the 49ers offense to efficiency. Maybe you value that enough to go out and pay more than the Washington Commanders did for Carson Wentz. Now, the problem here is the Colts don't have a first-round draft pick in the 2022 draft because they already spent it on Wentz last year. So I think that in the case of Jimmy Garoppolo, it remains very likely that his potential price will involve a conditional pick, because if the Colts are the most likely team to acquire Jimmy Garoppolo, A, they don't even have that first rounder. They already spent it for Wentz conditionally last year. And B, if you're going to do a conditional setup, you can't give away a 2022 pick. Garoppolo has to play a certain amount of snaps in this 2022 season before you determine what exactly that conditional pick return will be. So you're not going to send over that pick in 2023. For that reason, I think that, if something, does in fact go through with Garoppolo and the Colts, I think that you're looking at a pick in 2023 being at least part of the compensation. And I've been saying this for weeks. I think that a conditional pick, it has to be the way to go with Jimmy Garoppolo because of the health concerns, right? Torn ACL in 2018, 2 high ankle sprains in 2020. The shoulder injury, the torn shoulder capsule, the thumb injury in 2021. I mean, it's obviously a long list of injuries. You can say that he's has had bad injury luck. You could say he's injury prone. I mean, they're not related injuries, but it does seem that it afflicts Jimmy Garoppolo a lot. So if you're the Colts, you probably would like to breathe easier. Or if you're any prospective suitor, you probably would like to breathe easier and make sure that Jimmy Garoppolo satisfies some conditions of play time in 2022 before determining what value of pick to send back over to the 49ers. So I think conditional pick is something that is almost locked in. I would think that that's something that would have to happen to make this trade potentially fair for both sides. But hey, Indianapolis, they've got cap room now. They've got $70 million in cap room. They were able to jettison Carson Wentz without any dead money. They're willing to part with $15 million, but they found a partner. You could, make fun of Washington all you want, but they found a trade partner. And with $70 million in cap room, the Colts need to decide how they want to build their quarterback room moving forward, right? So Garoppolo, you could say, oh, hey, this might not be a long-term solution for them. He's on the wrong side of 30, but they can trade a conditional pick and have a tryout essentially over the course of a year. Because if you have a ready-made roster, you want to see if you can get into that Super Bowl contention, right? And that's what the 49ers did when they traded for Garoppolo back in 2017. They gave up the second rounder, had that 5-game trial period, decided to move forward with that into the future. Will Garoppolo want a new deal as soon as he is traded? Potentially, but the Colts actually don't have to do that because they have enough cap space to not have to lower that hit in 2022, which is a big advantage. A lot of teams, wouldn't have the ability to fit Garoppolo's $25.5 million cap number in right away. They would have to execute an extension to lower the 2022 number, spread out the cap hit. The Colts can plug and play. That's why the Colts seem like such a good potential fit right now, because they can plug and play Jimmy Garoppolo if they decide to go in that direction. And so far, Aaron Rappaport's report indicates that the Colts would, in fact, be interesting. So the 49ers options with Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, we had John Lynch talking about this at the NFL Combine. He said the 49ers are plan A, plan B, plan C. That was his quote. I think it's obvious that plan A is to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, get some capital back, begin the Trey Lance era. But if any of this is slowed down by the potential medical due diligence here, if the 49ers don't feel that they're being offered the return that they deem necessary for Jimmy Garoppolo, well, John Lynch has indicated that they do have plan B and plan C to where they could wait this out a little bit longer. So that's why the 49ers have cherished option power so much over the course of the past year or so, ever since they made the trade up to go for Trey Lance. And, even before then, option power is a hallmark of a successful business. It's something that you have to have. So look for the 49ers to continue to try to wield and maintain their option power as they work through this process. It's a complex one, but I think it's one that's slowly but surely materializing given some of the complicated factors. I'll take a couple questions, then I want to make another video because I have a little bit of time. this morning. Yeah, this is a good point. Carson Wentz has not missed any games in the past 2 seasons. I mean, he might have missed them performance wise, but not injury wise. And again, maybe that's the physical aspect of this, right? 6'5", 230 to 240. You might be less likely to be hurt when you take one of those hits when you fall to the ground. I don't know. I mean, it's in so much of injuries or luck, right? We have to acknowledge that, but that's part of it. So let's just take it for what it's worth. And I think that the conditional pick assigned to Carson Wentz was more due to performance, but he ended up playing the whatever percentage of snaps that he needed to play. He's got another conditional pick tied to his play time this year. I think with Jimmy Garoppolo, any potential conditional pick would definitely be centered on his health or inability to stay healthy moving forward. So, any questions? Let's take a look at some of these. The 49ers don't get a third or higher. Do you think the 49ers will keep Jimmy Garoppolo, take whatever they can, regardless of draft prospects? It's a good question. I think the 49ers might be built to wait this out. And this is going to cause a little bit of uproar, but they might even try to wait this out until training camp when they can get a higher price. The goal is to straddle the line of option power as long as you can. That's why you build the option power in the first place. So it's just a question of, can the 49ers execute the free agency business that they need to execute while Garoppolo is on the roster? And there is, I wrote about Nick Bosa's and Deebo Samuel's potential contract situation the other day. There are ways to re-sign these guys without really raising their 2022 cap hit all too much. There will be ways to sign some of these free agents without incurring all too much 2022 cap damage. You could severely backload these deals. So there might be ways for the 49ers to kind of squirm around, even with Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. And this is going to be up to Parag Marathe to do that kind of job if it does indeed come to that, so that they could continue wielding the option power as far as having both him and Lance on the roster and then being able to maximize trade return. I don't know if the 49ers are really willing to do that tightrope back, that tap dance, but we'll keep our eyes on it. And all options are obviously going to be on the table moving forward. Thank you, Jack. I saw the super sticker there. That's fun. $5. I can go get a beer at happy hour for that. So that's good stuff. If they cut Jimmy Garoppolo, yes, it's only $7 million in dead money, but it's still dead money that's not insignificant, right? If you trade him, it's 1.4. It'll cost you 1.4 in dead money. If you cut him, it'll cost you about 7.5. So that's a 7.5 million injury guarantee plus the 1.4 too. So you'd have to have both. So that's a big difference. That's what, 8.9? Yeah, 9 million or so versus 1.4 million. That's a couple really good players cap hits for 2022. So you could see that the 49ers would much rather trade Jimmy Garoppolo in this situation. I think the Steelers have a first rounder and the Colts don't. So should Pittsburgh be the front runner to get Jimmy Garoppolo? Only if, Pittsburgh is really willing to part with that first rounder. If it becomes some kind of bidding war, and I think that's what the 49ers would want, if teams are now desperate to get Garoppolo, who they believe is the top legitimate quarterback option on the market because the Deshaun Watson situation, who knows what's actually going to go on there. I know Deshaun Watson's a great player, but we know of all the controversy surrounding him. Well, if that's the case, Garoppolo is the last remaining realistic option. Even Pete Carroll somehow wants to get in on it, and he starts offering stuff. Well, if Pittsburgh outbids everybody, then the 49ers obviously would be happy to take their first round pick, but I don't know if that's realistic. Again, Wentz, with his price, which we just saw, which was, the 2/3, one of which can become the second, I think that's a rough kind of baseline. Obviously, different track record than Garoppolo, but Garoppolo's better. We don't know if he's worth more. And if he is worth more, is he worth as much as a first-round pick? Only if this turns into a real bidding war, in my opinion. And the 49ers would like that to turn into a real bidding war. But again, you're looking at a quarterback wrong side of 30 who has dealt with a litany of injury issues, who currently is recovering and rehabbing from shoulder surgery just on Tuesday. So there are constraining, factors here that must be considered. And the question is, will the trade market, supply and demand, right? Will the demand, because of the low supply of capable quarterbacks, will the demand cause the trade price to go up? That's the question I think the 49ers are waiting for. And it may not go up until training camp when some of these teams get desperate. So that's why I wonder if there is a potential kind of straddling of option power here over the course of the next few months. Are the Saints an option with a player coming back and return to offset salary? Yes, the Saints are an option. That was one of the rumored ones at the Combine. It's the NFL. Anything's an option. People always act shocked when some news goes down, but then we got to remember these NFL off seasons can be pretty wild. All right, one more question. What's the chance they hold on to Jimmy too long and other teams lose interest because of the high asking price? Well, I think there's always going to be demand for somebody at the quarterback position. It's a matter of the ability to hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo for too long. In an ideal world, you're like the 1980s 49ers where you have both Montana and Young on the roster. That was before the salary cap existed, though. So the Patriots of earlier, last decade, they had Garoppolo and Brady. But because the salary cap existed, they had to move on from one or the other. They moved on, obviously, from Garoppolo and traded him to the 49ers. The 49ers obviously moved on from Montana and turned the page to Steve Young once, that became something that they had to do. So you want to have maximum option power quarterback position, not just for financial reasons, but also for on-field reasons. You want to have the most important position have as much depth as possible. So I think you wield considerable option power and you don't run into problems as far as those options when you have both quarterbacks on the roster. You're always going to be able to, especially if he's healthy. And right now, I guess Garoppolo just underwent surgery, so it's a little bit more tenuous right now. But say you fast forward into August, if you got two healthy quarterbacks, somebody's going to need one of them around the league. Some stuff is going to happen. There aren't enough good quarterbacks in this National Football League to fuel 32 contenders. So Jimmy Garoppolo would have value even then. It's a question of getting to that point while carrying him on the roster, right? There's no downside in actually having him on the roster if the finances are thrown out. But since finances are a thing, since you need to clear up room, since you need to carry him on that roster, and since there's opportunity cost that goes with that, well, that's when it becomes hard. And that's the truth of the modern NFL. All right, guys. Well, I hope that helped explain what the 49ers situation right now with Jimmy Garoppolo is. It's a complex one, but we got into the nuances of it. So subscribe to the channel. I'm about to go live again or pre-record a video. We'll see. I don't like to stack up lives too close. Going to talk about the state of the special teams and a couple more things. So everybody take care. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you all soon.